Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome on into the Swear Word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and hey, this is a podcast for the chilihead community by the chilihead community. Regardless of your spice tolerance, this is the place for you. Up tonight, we have an amazing episode. We're going to be talking about the state of the show, some community questions, and really the road of what's next. So, episode 166 starts now. What's going on, Swear Nation? So glad to have everyone here. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, and or Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for being here and continuing to make this podcast what it is. Hey, if you are, maybe just finding out about the podcast, glad to have you here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the state of the podcast, really kind of encompassing some of those questions and answers that are just commonly asked, as well as really being able to lean into the idea of what's next, and a few teasers along the way of some very fun games, and of course some other things that will be coming up in future episodes. So without further ado, continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads, and or if you're on a platform that allows for a rating of the podcast, please go ahead, leave a 5-star review. That helps out greatly to be able to stay in front of this algorithm and get in front of more individuals that are just curious about the world of hot, because it's where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. But let's go ahead and kick off tonight's discussion. All right, so let's slow this down for a second here. This episode really isn't about chasing heat levels. It's not about breaking records, and it's not even about really any kind of specific kind of pepper or hot sauce. This one is about where we are, why we're here, and where the show is going next. Because if you have been listening for a while, or if this is maybe one of your first episodes to catch, the Swear Word has always been about more than just the hot sauce talk. This is about curiosity, this is about culture, and it's about why people push themselves towards the heat, the flavor, the discomfort, creativity, and the obsession. It's about the overall capsaicin chili head community as a whole. This is to highlight, feature, showcase those individuals that make this community happen. Everyone from the up-and-coming hobbyist that's crushing in the game, all the way to those individuals that are out there just absolutely blowing things away and legends in the space. So, tonight's episode is part check-in, part Q&A, and part roadmap, and part invitational for you to be involved into what is really coming next. So this isn't the Ask Me Anything episode. That is still slated for later in this month. So I know we're rounding out the year here, but this is really a recap of how 2025 has gone. So no rush, no gimmicks, just honest conversation. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the current state of the podcast. Right now, the podcast is in a really interesting place. We've built something very consistent, and we've built something recognizable, something that people come back to, whether you're here for the grower stuff, the sauce makers, the competitors, the mad scientists, or you're just one of those people that absolutely love spicy food. The show has grown organically. No viral hacks, no trend chasing, just conversations that respect the listener's intelligence. What I'm most proud of isn't the episode count, it's the range of voices and people showcased here. We've had everything from backyard growers, commercial scale producers, first-time founders, legacy brands in the space, competitive eaters, not only around the US, but around the whole entire world, as well as people who just love peppers and want to continue to learn and have fun along the way. That mix ultimately matters. It matters to me and it matters to you, because this space doesn't belong to one type of person. It belongs to anyone who's willing to be curious and be honest about why they're here in the first place. And moving forward, this podcast stays rooted in that idea. We're going to be focusing on some education, some storytelling, real experiences, not just hype. So, some other things that are going to be ended up into the overall mix here is there are going to be more educational episodes in the coming year. So, I know that that's been something that has been important. This last one that just happened was geared towards more of those individuals that have a spicy brand in general. That was more of an educational episode, educating them on essentially what they can do in order to market themselves. Everything from free all the way to low cost to just rolling it out and not worrying about the budget. As well as, there's always fun educational ways that we can learn from other growers or others that are in the space that may know how to build up soil or grow in very extreme conditions. We're also going to lean more into the overall storytelling aspect of this, really gaining a better understanding of these real experiences that these individuals, that whether they own a company or they're out there having fun as a hobby, really getting a better understanding of what they've gone through so that maybe others that are watching and listening are able to really pick up from this and gain something to help them along the way. Along with that, there are going to be some episodes rolling out here soon that are also going to be featured in 2026 that, may not have the absolute dead crosshairs over the idea of, pepper community or spice as a whole. But these individuals may come from a different walk of life, but still love and enjoy the overall offerings of different hot sauces, peppers, different dishes that they've had in their travels. This is where it's going to start to get fun in the sense of really gaining an insight as well from those that are just simply enjoying the community as a whole and what it has to offer, but maybe they specialize or are known for something else. This will help broaden the overall conversations and continue to bring value that is ultimately going to be beneficial for everyone. So I hope that y'all enjoy that as well. So, some most common questions from the overall community. This is one of my favorite parts because these questions come up consistently in comments, in messages, and emails, and just simply conversations at events. So, let's go ahead and start answering some of those directly. So, capsaicin questions. One of the most common questions is, does capsaicin build up over time? The short answer to that is no, not exactly. Capsaicin doesn't stack in your system like points on a scoreboard. Your tolerance does change, your perception changes, and your overall brain rewires how it reacts, but the chemistry itself isn't accumulating anything. That's why something that wrecked you 2 years ago might feel manageable now, and why tolerance is as much a psychological event as it is a physical event. Another big one that is commonly asked or mentioned is capsaicin dangerous? Used responsibly? No. Misused or abused? Anything can be. Ultimately, if you're pushing yourself, your body's already rejecting it, and instead of giving yourself the time to continue to either get water in your system, food in your system, etc., and if you were to just continuously eat this, maybe something bad could happen. I mean, anything, any kind of mass stacking of a substance is a potential bad thing. So capsaicin triggers pain receptors, not damages the receptors. But context matters here. Dosage matters here. Frequency matters here. And your personal health matters. So ultimately, heat is a tool, not a badge of honor. If you're already at the point that you're absolutely losing it, there's no reason to continue to shove more food, hot sauce, peppers, whatever, down your face. Let your body reset, come back to it. Be smart. I know you already know this, but simply have to get that out there since it is a common question that is brought up all the time. So, next question. This is going to be more geared towards hot sauce. Is hotter better? Well, no, it's not always better. Heat without flavor is just noise. Flavor without intention is forgettable. So, the best sauces out there do balance this heat, acidity, sweetness, texture, aroma, and the best producers understand these. So, another common question is, why do so many hot sauces taste similar? Well, simply because fermentation styles, things like pepper availability, co-packer constraints, shape of the market, and more is kind of the things that kind of help pave and really guide the overall market than people really realize. Creativity does exist, but sometimes the influence of others does end up shaking up the outcome. Some other questions about peppers and gardening questions that I commonly get asked or have sent on over to me is around the topic of grocery store peppers. Are they worse than homegrown? And so, simply put, it's not that they're worse than homegrown, they're just optimized differently. You got to think about it. The peppers that you grow in your backyard, you are able to see it out to entire maturity, to where that pepper is at its absolute prime to be able to be picked, to enjoy, and all that stuff. As to where you're thinking about the grocery peppers, for example, you're going to be thinking about they need to focus on things like shelf life stability, uniformity, and the overall time travel to be able to get that pepper from where it's at and it's grown all the way to wherever it's going to go across the world. So that transportation window is absolutely important. As to where homegrown peppers are typically optimized for the overall flavor, the aroma, the personality of just like wanting to find and grow the most gnarly pepper or to grow a very specific type of pepper. So you're going to have a lot more control and flexibility in what you're doing. So neither is wrong. They just serve different purposes. It's always nice, even as a chili head that grows their own peppers, to be able to go to the store in those months when you know that you're not going to be able to have, peppers ready or growing out in the yard, to be able to go to the store and pick up whether that be jalapenos or habaneros or serranos, etc., and have that access. Are they going to taste as good as the ones you grow in your backyard? No, probably not. But there's not really a wrong way to go about getting some peppers there. Another question that I get asked a lot is, can anyone grow peppers? Yes, but patience matters more than skill here. Now, oftentimes, everyone wants to throw the full kitchen sink at what they have going on. Remember, start with the basics. Just keep it simple. And if you need to add something, figure out what the plant is telling you that it needs, make those adjustments, and continue on. Don't try to just buy any and every product off the shelf, throw it all in, and think, I'm set now, because you could simply just cause more of a problem than keeping it simple and adding what is needed. There's many different iterations, and as we've covered in other episodes on how to grow, but ultimately start simple, learn, grow, adjust. All right, so next up, 2026 updates and kind of some overall podcast direction that will be going forward. So this is where we're ultimately going to start opening up the conversation. So if you're hearing some of these, you want to see some of these, go ahead, send these on over through the comments down below. Send this on over, via social media or directly on the website. Reach out that way, and we'll continue this discussion and obviously gain the feedback along the way. But 2025 has been absolutely amazing. Have had tons of new guests, some returning guests, and some very fun solo episodes that have more of an educational nugget aspect to them. Now, This is kind of important to want to know where you are wanting to see going into 2026. Some of the overall formatting ideas that I have rolling forward into 2026 are going to be things like breaking things down into having new guests come on, of course, having a higher number of returning guests coming on back in, diving into the educational aspect of things, really breaking it down and really kind of building into that nugget of knowledge. And now, from the educational background side of things, are you wanting to see more, episodes that are around the history of some of these peppers, or is there a specific topic within the community that you would like to have featured, highlighted, and discussed? Go ahead and let me know down below in the comments, or once again, reach out on socials to go ahead and make sure that I have that geared up, ready to go for 2026, as well as really experimenting with the overall idea of having some of these shorter episodes or keeping it at that hour to hour 30 duration. Ultimately, that is the shift. Obviously, whenever it's going with a interview, that hour 30 is really kind of the defined line. It's just enough time to kind of get the conversation going, get a little bit of insight, and then, of course, keep it to where there is always that door open for that guest to return. Now, if you would like to see some more of the behind the scenes stuff, whether that be just quick released items on social media, whether that be photos or shorts, whatever the case may be, definitely open to doing that. But if that's of value, if that's something you want to see, let me know down below or reach out on socials, and we can definitely get that geared up for 2026. Obviously, we have some things that are going to be pretty exciting. I got a few games and things like that, which I'll show you here in a little bit. On at least one of the games that I have working out right now, there's a total of 3 that are, geared up and ready to go. One likely will be dropping before the end of 2025, just to give a little bit of a feel on exactly what is going to be coming for 2026. If there is a game, if there is a overall, just idea, topic, whatever, for one of these games that you would like to see on there. Maybe there's a pepper that hasn't made the pepper gauntlet that you would love to see featured on there. Go ahead, let me know down below. Same thing with any kind of a hot sauce that you'd like featured on there. Let me know down below what you think for, any of those products that need to be sat on the overall rotation. Some other things that I want to make sure that I bring up here is, we've had the podcast now for a little over 2 years going, running strong, absolutely had a blast. And, ultimately, I personally haven't thought about doing this, but something that is commonplace that you'll see, whether that's rolled out to just those that are, watching, listening, or it's really kind of oftentimes also put on those that are hosting the overall podcast to really select this. But I want to use this opportunity to be able to have your input and your thoughts on, things like guest of the year. So ultimately, if you have a guest of the year that you can think of, and we will open this up from, the very start of the podcast till now, since this is a new thing that we'll be rolling out in 2026, we'll go ahead and open that up. So now I want to put something directly into your hands, which is opening up the idea of voting for guest of the year. So that isn't going to be about popularity. It's about impact. It's really highlighting who taught you something, who shifted your perspective, and who represents the space honestly. Go ahead, drop the name, share the episode, send a message, whatever the case may be. This is ultimately what helps shape the overall flow and structure to the podcast, and really continues to showcase and highlight those individuals that need to come back on more frequently. Now, same thing. If you had a favorite product or favorite brand for the year, go ahead, let me know down below who your guest of the year, your favorite product of the year, and Of course, fire off with any of the overall people that have yet to be on the podcast that you would like featured on the podcast, or topics that you would like featured. Let me know down below what that is, and I will make sure to get that rolling into 2026. And of course, we will have a great overall post that showcases those winners for Guest of the Year and Product of the Year. And of course, going to be giving some fun shout outs going forward in 2026 for those that are actively engaged, those that are always there, supporting, sharing, loving the overall growth that we have been on. So thank y'all all so much. This is my chance to tell y'all that. So I wanted to say that as well. All right, want to take a quick pause here, redirect just for a moment, because if you support this podcast, if you like these long form conversations, getting to know, get plugged in, and understand the overall community, you value the transparency that is really highlighting this overall spicy space, then think about becoming a Swear Citizen. You can do so by going to theswearword.net, scrolling down to the bottom, and it will say Join Swear Nation, and jump on in there. You're going to get, some exclusive content that will be rolling out starting in 2026, as well as you'll be able to, join a overall community that is going to be discussing up and coming games and changes to those, maybe helping kind of formulate those A/B tests of what you might want to see and define what that might be for those games, as well as upcoming topics that you want. You can quickly input that there. Maybe brainstorm about, some guests that you want to see coming on, as well as being able to see those hot or not cards as they roll out and get that little sneak peek before they actually drop. So that'll be some fun ways. Also going to be able to have access to some exclusive promo codes so that Swear Citizens will be able to use for your favorite spicy products. And that list will continue to grow and continue to stay updated so that you can always ensure that you're getting your sauces, your products that you want, and of course, getting it for the best possible deal. So you're not just buying into the overall ad space, you're buying into the idea that the education, the authenticity, the community involvement, and the overall love, drive, and passion is what is important at the core. So that also helps the podcast continue going and being able to crank out new things along the way. So thank you everyone who is already a Swear Citizen, and glad to have all those that will be joining in 2026. So thank you all. All right, so we also are going to be doing an Ask Me Anything episode coming up here very soon. There's not going to be any kind of filters, no softballs required, just simply hot sauce questions, capsaicin questions, business questions, personal curiosity questions, whatever you're thinking about. If you've ever wondered why something works the way it does, now's the time. Submit those questions through social comments, through DMs, reach out via email, or send on over through like different community posts, whether that be on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, you name it. We'll go ahead and get that rolling. And of course, Swear Citizens, you have your ability to send those questions over to me and be able to hear from me very promptly instead of having to wait until a new episode drops. If it's thoughtful, it's fair game. So go ahead and send those questions on in. And I'm looking forward to this Ask Me Anything. And I cannot wait to, of course, jump on into that one. And finally, there is an episode coming where I flip the overall format and I interview myself. Well, I will be the one being interviewed. As had been mentioned before in a prior episode, being nominated for the hot seat, that is something that seems to be of interest. So we'll be teeing that up and likely trying to get that one done before the end of the year. I have one person in mind at the moment and two others on standby for that interview in particular. And it's just simply knowing that I need to find someone that understands and appreciates the overall format of what we have going here on the Swear Word podcast and making sure that it stays true to that. little bit of the overall background, talking about some motivation, some mistakes along the way, and why the podcast exists the way it does. Some people have been asking for it for a long time, and it's finally happening. So keep that in mind as we roll into 2026, because it is going to be, I assume, a lot of fun, and I can't wait. I don't know exactly what's going to be asked because, in true form, there are no set questions. It's just simply the flow of conversation keeps this thing going. If you would like to submit some of those questions for that Brandon Swear episode, then please, when you submit those questions, go ahead, leave an indicator that you want that question specifically saved for the Brandon Swear interview. And I'll make sure whoever is interviewing me at that point is loaded with those questions and has them. And of course, it gets those answered. So, and if you've made it this far, I greatly appreciate you. And one thing that I have mentioned quite a few times throughout this episode is that I have been working on a few different games. One in particular that I'm going to be showing you now is one that will not only be used in future episodes with interviews, really rolling forward and getting the other guests' hot take on this. It also is likely going to make its own appearance as a separate segment that's outside of the podcast that will be done in many different things throughout the community. So look forward to airing this one out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this one pulled up here. Ranked and Reckless. So up here, as you can see, is going to be the overall. We're going to break down, we're going to get down and dirty, and we're going to get ranked with these items. And of course, there's that chance that things get a little bit reckless, whether that be a guest's hot take, or maybe it's just something that you would have ranked different than I had if it's on one of those breakout segments. So I think this is going to be an absolutely fun game entirely. And it's going to be one that we're going to be able to, laugh about, maybe talk about different products and ranking them, talking about different reviewers and ranking that overall episode, or how they handled that product, or different areas in which this whole thing can kind of fit in. I'm excited for this one, and I hope that you are too. Ranked and Reckless will be making a debut, quite possibly before the end of the year. So looking forward to that, and hopefully that one resonates well with everyone as well. So hopefully that Ranked and Reckless is one, like I said, one of 3 games that I am working on. That one will be breaking itself out into a solo episode segment outside of the podcast. Very much like Scorchin' and Swearin' is outside of the podcast. That's staying the interview review side of things. On that note, because I completely forgot about that, Scorchin' and Swearin' is going to be seeing a faster, more frequent basis of product reviews on that side. Now, with the Scorchin' and Swearin', ultimately, that's going to be able to feature and showcase a lot more products than the typical rate at which the podcast does. Because if you've already started to notice, on average, the podcast will air anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 sauces or products in one episode. So in order to be able to keep the podcast impactful, beneficial, and really be able to get some good value out of that, I will be breaking out more of those product reviews on Scorchin' and Swearin', and really keeping true to those products being featured specifically to those that are guests of the overall podcast. Going to kind of play around with that. If you would like to see more of the product reviews on their own and less into the overall podcast, let me know down below. Let me know what you thought about that idea. It's just something I've been kind of kicking around. Want to make sure I'm bringing the maximum amount of value to you. Because ultimately, this show does not exist without listeners who think, question, stay curious, enjoy spicy food, enjoy growing tips, being able to be out there and getting a good idea of the overall competitive side of things, maybe just in sharing and enjoying a spicy dish with a friend, a family member, and continuing to grow the community. So thank you all for everything that you do. Thank you all for tuning in, week out, with these different discussions and great guests that we're able to have on. New episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Central. We're not just chasing trends, we're building something that lasts here, and you are a crucial part to be able to plug in for more conversations, more depth, and more honesty. And as always, there's never a scripted question. There's only the icebreaker, and everything else is the sake of the curiosity, the journey, and the respect that is the heat, the conversations, the ones that make it happen, and a glimpse of what it's like all around the world. Quick shout out for our sponsors, podvision.io. If you're looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you've hit a bump in the road, you're trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all of those needs, as well as webdx.one. Maybe you have an online site, maybe you had a guy at one point and lost contact, maybe you never got around to building one. Highly recommend checking out webdx.one. Best of all, you get to focus on what you do best while they get you looking great online. I'm Brandon Swear from everything from the world of hot. This has been The Swear Word.